The first item of business is general questions. Our first question from Sandra White.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its position is on there being a requirement for a two-thirds majority in any future independence referendum.
Cabinet Secretary Michael Russell.
Presiding Officer, the Referendum Scotland Bill is intended to provide a legislative framework for the holding of referendums which are within the competence of the Scottish Parliament. The bill does not propose a supermajority for any future referendum in Scotland. A fundamental tenet of democracy is that one person's vote is worth as much as anyone else's. The suggestion of a supermajority would leave that principle in tatters.
Sandra White.
Thank the Cabinet Secretary and Minister for that reply. Does the Minister agree with the Venice Commission, the advisory body to the Council of Europe, and their guidance which advises against the use of vote thresholds, which they have stated quite clearly would be in the interest of those opposed to a proposal simply not to vote?
Cabinet Secretary.
I have noted the Venice Commission's recent Code of Good Practice on Referendums, which was issued last year. I know that Tory-supporting journalists and indeed Tory MSPs are actively promoting a variety of issues in a referendum, including a variety of turnout requirements and quorums. The Venice Commission is entirely clear. A turnout quorum, a threshold or minimum percentage, is wrong because it assimilates voters who abstain with those who vote no. And an approval quorum, which is approval by a minimum percentage of registered voters, risks involving a difficult political situation. If, for example, as of course happened in 1979, there is a simple majority, but an artificial, one might call, cheat applied by other people.
Adam Tompkins.
So yesterday, in evidence to the Finance and Constitution Committee, the Cabinet Secretary said that he wanted referendums in Scotland to follow international best practice, and I welcomed that statement. Yet he proposes, Presiding Officer, that any future second independence referendum should bypass the scrutiny of the Electoral Commission. How on earth is that following best practice?
Cabinet Secretary.
The member is quite wrong. I do not suggest that any question in any referendum bypasses the Election Commission. The question in any future independence referendum should be one that's capable of being carefully understood, and it has been approved by the Election Commission. Indeed, not only was it approved, the wording was changed from the proposal that the Scottish Government made. The report from the Election Commission into that question I quoted yesterday in evidence to the Finance and Constitution Committee. It has been tested. It continues in use. It has been used virtually every month in the last 4 or 5 years. It is a current question. It has been tested. Any other views are indeed an attempt to muddy the waters.
Alex Rowley.
Presiding Officer, whilst most of the experts in this field have welcomed the referendum bill, they all, without any doubt, has said that any question should be tested, regardless of whether there was a referendum 3-4 years before. Has he heard a politician called Boris Johnson who ignores the advice of experts? Will he listen? Will he listen, and will he allow us to work together to bring forward a bill that will have confidence?
Cabinet Secretary.
I'm grateful to the member for recognising that the bill has substantial support. It is better than the Conservatives did, who misrepresented the bill as saying that it doesn't have that support. But I return to this point. I am not against testing. Every question should be tested. The question in an independence referendum has been tested, has been approved, and is in current usage. That is inescapable. It has been used in hundreds of opinion polls, and anybody who's trying to stop that happening is in actual fact trying to stop the Scottish people having a democratic say about their future.
Patrick Harvey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. If a supermajority procedure had been in place for the last 5 years, there would have been a mandate neither for independence nor for staying in the UK, neither for leaving nor remaining in the European Union. Politics would be in even more of a mess than the Conservatives have managed to make of it. Isn't all this talk of a two-thirds majority just a tacit admission by those opposed to independence that they don't think they can get much more than a third of the votes next time?
Cabinet Secretary.
I think the member is entirely right. The louder that we hear from Conservative MSPs and others about this, the more they realise is they cannot win an independence referendum because they cannot silence the legitimate voice of Scotland.
Mike Rumbles.
Surely we need to learn from the experience of two divisive referendums in 2014 and 2016 that major constitutional change needs to show that there is an overwhelming support for constitutional decisions. That used to be the view of the First Minister.
Cabinet Secretary.
The view of the Venice Commission, which started this discussion, is entirely clear. There should not be an approval quorum. This is the best practice. So if the member does not want best practice, he should say so very clearly. But actually, the Liberal Democrats aren't in a position to talk about this. They were the people who championed a second referendum. Now they just want to ignore that, because apparently they think Joe Swinson can be Prime Minister. There are many delusions in this place, but that's the worst I've heard.
Jackson Carlow.
Would it help the Cabinet Secretary if I confirmed that it is not the policy of Scottish Conservatives to require a supermajority in any future referendum on any subject?
Cabinet Secretary.
It would not only help, I'm delighted to hear it. Just a pity that Murdo Fraser is not in this chamber at present. Oh, he is. Oh, yes, he is. He is, sorry. It's just a pity that the self-effacing Murdo Fraser is not here, but he is here. He has heard it. I hope he will now delete the tweets that demand it and go into a situation of accord with his acting leader.
And Neil Findlay.
I don't want a referendum, but if there were one in the future, will the Minister ensure that any future referendum has the ability to have another option, a third option, on the ballot paper?
Cabinet Secretary.
I think we are always open to discussions about what a referenda should look like. But the people of Scotland have to have the right to choose, and that is the basic issue. I'm glad to say it is one that Jeremy Corbyn accepts. And obviously, Neil Findlay nearly accepts it. We need to get the rest of the Labour Party round to it, and then they can perhaps show example to the other opposition parties to listen to what a democratic system demands.
And one final question from Murdo Fraser.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. What a sensitive soul the Cabinet Secretary is. He clearly can't take a light-hearted comment on Twitter with a wink emoji as anything other than that. But isn't it true from the exchanges we've just heard that this government is running scared of having a fair referendum, running scared of having the Electoral Commission decide on the terms of the question? We don't want another independence referendum. The people of Scotland don't want another independence referendum, but we can't have the SNP gerrymander one if there is to be one.
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I heard the Prime Minister last night declaiming in the House of Commons about what the people want. I think he is as out of touch as Murdo Fraser is. What the people of Scotland want is to move forward from the extraordinary Tory-created chaos of Brexit. And the opportunity to do so exists if the people of Scotland choose their own constitutional future. Anybody who stands in the way of that isn't a Democrat.
Thank you. We move on to question 2, James Dornan, but I'm not sure Mr Dornan is in the chamber. So we move on to question 3, Keith Brown.
To ask the Scottish Government how the recently announced 4-year delay and £2 billion cost increase to the UK government-led smart meter rollout will impact customers in Scotland.
Minister Paul Wheelhouse.
It's important that all customers, consumers, especially those struggling to pay their fuel bills, have the opportunity to use smart meters to better understand how to manage their energy usage and to allow them access to the best tariffs. The smart meter programme is a reserved matter to UK Government. However, I will consider the implications of last week's announcement and raise my concerns on the impact of the delay on consumers with the UK Government.
Keith Brown.
Can I thank the Minister for his answer and also ask whether he agrees with me that this latest delay in a substantial and lengthy line of expensive delays to UK Government infrastructure projects, including HS2, the Airwave Communication System, Crossrail, aircraft carriers, all have a substantial and direct impact on public services in Scotland, the collective cost overruns exceeding £40 billion, and clearly illustrate the tale of two governments, a Scottish Government delivering for the people of Scotland on time and on budget, and a Westminster Government yet again letting them down.
Minister.
Well, Keith Brown is absolutely right to highlight the concerns about the cost overruns here. We're talking about potentially a £2.5 billion overrun on the programme's smart meter rollouts, and it clearly does identify that this is going to have an impact on consumers as indeed will the additional costs of the Hinkley C nuclear power station, will add significantly to the bills of consumers as well. And these are matters that I will be raising with my UK Government counterparts, and to make the point that the investment in renewables would be a significantly better way of spending consumers' money, as we've seen today with the announcement by BEIS, UK Government Department, that 54.8% of Scotland's electricity needs are now met by wind energy alone, and 76.3% overall of our needs are met by renewables. That is the way to invest. Getting the smart meter programme right and getting the correct balance of energy needs right will save consumers money by investing in technologies that can deliver energy at lower prices. And I agree with them. This is a terrible example of how the contract has been managed by UK Government.
Question number 4, Emma Harper.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on progress implementing the new GP contract.
Cabinet Secretary Jean Freeman.
The new GP contract negotiated with the BMA introduces multidisciplinary teams to practices to ensure GPs are able to spend more time with patients. The contract implementation is gathering pace, with most activity flagged as on track or partly on track. A number of challenges to implementation are emerging, including recruitment and infrastructure, and these are being actively addressed both locally and nationally, including through our commitment to increase GP numbers by at least 800 in the next 10 years. Pharmacotherapy appears to be the most progressed, with evidence across every GP practice, positive impact from GPs. Integration authorities also report around 60% on track for mental health, and 65% for musculoskeletal physiotherapists.
Emma Harper.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response. Locally, I met with Dumfries and Galloway GP practice managers to hear their thoughts on the new contract. And whilst the contract was broadly welcome, one of the concerns that was raised was the delivery of round 1 and 2 premises payments as outlined in the contract. Can the Cabinet Secretary therefore indicate whether these payments are scheduled for delivery as planned, or whether any delays are anticipated?
Cabinet Secretary.
So we are committed to make payments to all those practices who have successfully applied in the first round. I appreciate it has taken longer to finalise the details of the GP Sustainability Loan Agreement, but both the Scottish Government and the BMA are keen that any implications of a loan are well understood and meet the needs of GPs. The loan scheme is an innovation in Scottish general practice, and we want to be sure with the BMA that we've got it right. We're close to finalising the agreement, and following that we will be able to begin making payments and scheduling the next round of applications.
Question number 5, Shona Robertson.
To ask the Scottish Government what specific issues were discussed at the inaugural meeting of the Drugs Death Task Force.
Minister Joe Fitzpatrick.
The task force discussed a number of areas of work to take forward as a matter of priority. Our commitment to put the voices of lived and living experience, including families, at the centre of the task force work, and the best way to achieve this, to utilise their unique insights, formed a key part of discussions. I also announced that a further 3 people with lived experience had been added to the group. The need for immediate action was emphasised to all members, as was the expectation that they should draw on their shared knowledge, expertise and influence to enact changes that will save the lives of those most at risk.
Shona Robertson.
Can I thank the Minister for his answer? Can the Minister say how the work of the task force will link to the work already undertaken by the Dundee Drugs Commission, and how he will ensure that those who are directly affected and indeed their families are kept centre stage in all of this important work as it's taken forward?
Minister.
Thank the member for the very important point. The Dundee Drugs Commission's work, I think, has relevance not just to Dundee but to the whole of Scotland. That's why I asked the chair of the Commission, Dr Robert Peat, to sit on the task force, making sure that he can feed in to make sure the experience of the Commission, the work that they've done, can be key as the Drugs Task Force takes its work forward. The Task Force will also be represented at the stakeholder event being held in Dundee on the 23rd of October, where there will be discussions about the Commission's recommendations and how they are being taken forward. Sorry, and the member also asked, apologies, about making sure how we are keeping that lived voice experience very much to the fore in the task force, and that is actually a very important point. It was a major part of our discussion. We saw some video of people with living experience, because I think that's important as well, and how we can reach out using a number of engagement events. But we're also looking at how we can get that lived and living experience and learn lessons from elsewhere. So the Dundee Drugs Commission, I think, did a piece of work in terms of using lived experience. And there's also good examples, particularly from Glasgow, where the ADP there is using lived and living experience refereeing groups as part of their commissioning of work going forward. So I think it's absolutely crucial, and it's something that will be central to the task force.
Monica Lennon.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can the Minister advise when the Drug Death Task Force will next meet and what will be discussed?
Minister.
I've written, I think, to all of the health spokespeople offering a meeting to give them a fuller update, but the next meeting of the task force will be towards the end of October. But there's a number of work streams ongoing between now and then as well.
Question 6 not been lodged. Question 7, Neil Bibby.
To ask the Scottish Government what action it is taking to protect the public from doorstep crime and bogus callers.
Minister Ash Denham.
The Scottish Government is committed to supporting the work of its partners, so including Police Scotland, Trading Standards, Neighbourhood Watch and also Crime Stoppers, to raise awareness of doorstep crime and to provide practical advice in terms of prevention. Initiatives such as the nominated Neighbour Scheme help build the resilience of our communities to doorstep crime. Since 2017, the Scottish Government has also implemented a nuisance calls action plan to tackle the scourge of nuisance and scam telephone calls, and this includes the funding of a call blocking units for vulnerable consumers.
Neil Bibby.
Thank the Minister for that answer. Over the past 3 years, pensioners across Renfrewshire have lost more than £120,000 in life savings to bogus callers. Local police are treating this as a priority, but there's still a great deal of preventative work to be done in the community to tackle doorstep crime. Would the Minister therefore join me in welcoming the Paisley Daily Express Protect Our Pensioners campaign to raise awareness of this issue, encourage the community to come forward to report suspicious activity and stop the scammers who prey on older people in their tracks?
Minister Ashton.
I would. Scams, doorstep crimes, anything like that can be very, very serious for those affected, and I don't think it's going to be possible to legislate or regulate to fully address these issues. So the best defence against scams of any type is prevention through education, as the member suggested. To that end, the Scottish Government supports a number of initiatives, such as the Shut Out Scammers campaign, but I would commend the Paisley Daily Record for running such a campaign, and also the member for raising the issue.
Maurice Corrie.
Presiding Officer, it's been estimated that every year more than a quarter of a million Scots are victims of scams, often through bogus calls, has already been said. What scrutiny has the Minister undertaken herself into increasing the scale and impact of financial scams in Scotland, and what action will she take to encourage more awareness campaigns to prevent such crime than she's already talking about?
Minister.
Yes, actually, the regulations of scams is actually reserved to the UK Government, but the Scottish Government does run a number of awareness-raising campaigns, and I would like to offer the member an opportunity to meet with me to discuss this in further detail if he would like to take up that offer.
Thank you very much, and that concludes general questions.